Hey family, it's your host Tiara J, and you have just tuned in to Time with T podcast, where we are trusting ourselves more every day to evolve effortlessly. Again, I want to go ahead and shout out everybody that did tune in to episode 1 and 2. I appreciate the love, the support, the sharing on the Facebook pages and Instagram. Y'all love and support has been so real. And again, I appreciate y'all so much. And I cannot say that enough to all my listeners. If you're new tuning in, welcome to Time with T podcast. This is a podcast where I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to keep it clean as possible. But you are going to always take away something from every single podcast that you listen to. That is my goal, to make sure that I'm reaching everybody in some way, shape, or form. I want to reach somebody and help somebody in some type of way. I talk about things that are very relatable for everyone. So again, if you are new tuning in to this podcast episode, then welcome, and thank you for tuning in today. So you guys, we are going to go ahead and get into episode 3. And the subject today, we kind of shift into a new level today. We're going to start talking about relationships. And the title is Relationships Are Hard. Relationships can be hard, and I know we all know that. And there's 2 factors in a relationship I feel are very, very important that I really want to touch on today. So go ahead and grab your glass of wine or whatever it is that relaxes you. Go ahead and relax yourself, kick your feet up, because we about to go in on a few things in regards to relationships. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, family. So we are here for episode 3, and we are going to be talking about relationships. And I titled this particular episode, Relationships Are Hard, just because those are my thoughts and my feelings. I think most of us can agree that relationships can be hard. They don't always have to be hard, but I believe that sometimes we make them harder than what they really should be. And 2 things that I really feel are so important in relationships is communication and compromise. Those 2 things in particular go hand in hand together in order to create a healthy, prosperous relationship. Now, communication, that in particular is a universal thing, no matter what type of relationship it is, whether it's your spouse or your kids, your coworkers, family, friends. Communication is key in all of those relationships. Without communication, what do you really have? I really feel like a lot of times, especially in relationships with husband, wives, partners, significant others, sometimes when we're in a relationship with a person for so long, we tend to let real communication fall to the wayside because we get so comfortable that we feel like, oh, this person has me all figured out. In actuality, they don't have you all figured out. Why? Because we are human and we are constantly going to evolve and change into a new being. And there's nothing wrong with that. It is absolutely nothing wrong with change. The problem is, while you're changing, make sure you're communicating your changes with your partner. Just like if you're having issues in a relationship, those issues need to be communicated with your partner. Not communicating with your partner, but communicating with everybody else about the issues. What is it solving? I really want you to ask yourself, if you're in a situation right now with your significant other, your spouse, whomever, and you are not addressing these issues and your concerns and communicating with your partner, how do you think that's ever going to be a solution to the problems that you're having if you're not effectively communicating these issues with your partner? And at the same time, your partner needs to be at a state of mind where they are able to be willing and ready to listen to what you have to say, to hear you out, to not make it a screaming match where y'all both just end up arguing, frustrated with each other, and not getting anywhere. So that's why I say communication is so very important. The way we communicate is so different. Like, we all communicate in different ways, right? So there are ways that I believe we can communicate to make it work if we really want to make it work. You and that other person, like, you really have to be willing to give and willing to put in so much effort and be dedicated to the relationship in order for things like communication to no longer be a problem and a hindrance to the growth of the relationship. Compromising, that is so very important. So very important, because you have to give up your pride to reach a neutral agreement with this other person. You're not always going to be right. You're not going to always see eye to eye, but you both should have the goal in mind to make sure that each other is always comfortable and that each other is always satisfied. Don't always have to agree, but let's agree to disagree. And you have to be willing to put yourself aside sometimes. Like, when you're in a relationship, again, relationships can be hard, but they don't have to be. But they can be hard. And when you dealing with another person, you have two different personalities. Y'all can look at the same movie together and both of y'all have perceived it totally different than the other person. Does that mean that your perception is right and the other person's perception is wrong? No, it just clearly means that we are two separate beings on two different waves. And in order for the relationship to work, we're going to have to make sure our waves are somehow meeting and splashing together at some point in time, because without those waves coming together and you and your partner connecting and making it a consistent thing, then a relationship is not going to work. It's not going to last. I can't stress that enough. I can't stress it enough. And a lot of times I heard people say, oh, men don't know how to communicate. Men don't know how to communicate. But women, we don't know how to communicate all the time either. It's not a man versus woman issue. It's a personal thing. Like, everybody personally has their form of communication. I just feel like in a relationship, communication needs to be very, very effective, because it's going to make or break the relationship. Not compromising with your partner is going to make or break the relationship. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if you're not willing to compromise and meet your partner halfway, and if you're not willing to let go of yourself sometimes and put your own feelings to the side, your thoughts and your feelings to the side sometimes, just so that way you can kind of not so much let your partner win, but make them feel like how they feel is valid. what they're saying to you is important, and all those things matter. That's why I'm saying communication, compromise, they come hand in hand together. And without those two things together in a relationship, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So there has to be something that you willing to do on your own, because nobody can make you do anything. Nobody can make you become a better communicator. Nobody can make you become this person that's willing to bend a little bit more in a relationship, willing to compromise more, willing to be more open and more mindful of the thoughts and feelings of your partner. Nobody can make you do those things. That has to be a personal decision that you want to make on your own. That I want to be better, not just for me, but for the person that I'm with. If you really, truly love the person that you're with and you feel like it is worth it, the relationship is worth it, and you willing to do everything that you can to make sure that it's working, their partner needs to make sure that they're being open and honest and communicating exactly what they feel. And if you're not going to communicate how you feel, if you're not going to communicate changes that has been made that's noticeable in the relationship, if you're not willing to accept what the other person is going to say about you, and when I say about you, I mean when they're expressing to you, you make me feel like this when you do that. Don't get offended. Don't get your panties all in a bunch, because at some point in time, the tables will turn and you're going to be having to have that same conversation with your partner at some point in time. So therefore, don't be mad and getting all angry when the tables turn and that discussion has to be turned around on you. That person, you and that person, y'all both have to be willing to accept the things that are being said. Now, what's even more important is after y'all have this conversation and y'all communicating, what it is that you want, and make sure you making your wants and your needs, those intentions needs to be very clear when you are having these type of conversations. But the most important part is after you've gone through communicating, after you've discussed how can we compromise, what happens after that? What did you and this person get out of that conversation? Do you feel like, okay, the conversation ended and I'm still feeling the same damn way? Or are you feeling like the conversation ended, I feel like we got an understanding, I think a change is about to come? If you steady walking away after constantly communicating with your partner, if you're still walking away with feeling as shitty as you did before you started the conversation, then you need to really think about this relationship that you're in. Is it for you? Are you happy in it? Are you satisfied in it? Is it completing you? Is it adding value to you? And sometimes you got to ask yourself, has the well run dry? Has your well run dry? And it's okay to understand that sometimes the relationship has to come to an end. It may hurt like hell to let a relationship go. We've all been through that. We've all had our share of heartbreak. We've had our share of breakups, makeups, breaking up again. We all know how that shit feels. But sometimes we hold on to these relationships for too long. Expiration date done expired 10, 11 times, and we still keep going back as if we're insane, which is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Y'all, relationships are hard, but we don't have to make them that way. I'm a big communicator. I think I've told y'all that like numerous of times. And the biggest thing I hate about communication is when a person is only listening to respond to what you're saying and they not listening so that way they can digest what's being said to them. If you only listening and you only take a defensive side to when I mention you versus when I'm mentioning you, me, we, that's a problem. That is a major problem. That is a red flag if you're going through it. That is a major problem because that right there lets you know that that person is not only disregarding your feelings, they are also telling you that this is me and what you saying don't really matter because I don't have the problem. You have the problem. I don't have the problem. So therefore, I'm only going to listen to what's going to make sense to me. I don't care what makes sense to you. That's an issue. If you going through that, that is an issue. And you need to reevaluate that relationship, no matter who the relationship is with. And I'm not talking about just lovers. I'm talking about any relationship. Communication is key in any relationship. So if you're dealing with somebody in your life and in your circle that is that type of person that has no regards about anybody else's feelings and how they may make other people feel, those the people you need to knock on out your circle because they ain't doing you no good. They ain't doing you no good. They ain't doing shit, but the person is gonna piss you off time and time again until you decide to kick their ass out your box. I mean, that's all they are. Relationships are hard, y'all. But they don't have to be. Communication and compromise. What does those things mean to you and how important are they to you? In a relationship, it's very important to me because it's making or breaking the relationship. And not having those two together, detrimental. It's setting the tone for toxicity, toxic relationships. My God, we not gonna go into that. We're gonna have to do that another episode. But being in a toxic situation is also a huge barrier for creating effective, good communication with your partner. And there are levels to toxicity. But again, we're not going to go into that this episode, but toxic relationships they're not lasting. And nowadays it seems like social media makes hashtag toxic like it's such a good thing, but it's really not. And don't nobody want to be in a toxic relationship. I don't care how cute they try to paint the picture on social media. Nobody wants a toxic relationship. But not having communication and compromise, that's what that's going to create. Because when those two things are not set in place in a relationship, it can be so heavy, like carrying around all these bottled up feelings and emotions because you are unable to have a conducive conversation with your partner because communication is such a huge barrier for the two of you. That's something that if you are in a situation, you got to nip that in the bud right now. Don't keep investing your time if that's something that is never going to change with a person. Again, we are who we are. We're all different. We all communicate differently, but it's not an excuse to be an asshole. It's not an excuse to ignore the feelings of the person that you so-called yourself being in love with or loving. It's not an excuse for any of those things. Because at the end of the day, you got to be willing to what? Compromise. Compromise that sometimes you're going to have to do things that you really don't want to do. Sometimes you're going to go places that you really don't want to go to. But that's what compromising is. It's looking at another person and being so accepting to their differences and having the ability to say that I can agree to disagree with you. And I respect your way of thinking, although it's not my way of thinking. The things that you've said and how you feel are valid to me. And as your partner, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make sure that you are A, happy, B, satisfied, 3, feeling appreciated. Communication and compromise, y'all, is so important in a relationship. And I know that I'm kind of like more calm now. It's because, like I told y'all, when I really talk about certain things and I'm really passionate about it, I begin a little bit calm, smooth. But seriously, communication and compromise, I cannot stress that enough, how important it is for relationships. But since we're talking about love relationships, I really hope that you and your partner are able to exercise those two things in a relationship in a most effective and loving way. Because again, like I said, it's going to either make or break the relationship. And if you don't have those two things set in place, and if you don't make those a priority as something that, if you know that that's something y'all need to work on and y'all just ignoring it, y'all brushing over it, or you've been in a relationship so long that you just like, fuck it, I'm just here now, so I'm just going to deal with it. You know, the excuse I always hear, oh, that's just him. Oh, that's just how he acts. Or that's just her. So you predictable now? Like, this person can predict what you gonna do? That's another barrier right there. That's a barrier. If your partner feeling like you're predictable, if they feel like you're predictable, then they really probably gonna feel like it's nothing that you can really tell them to change the way they feel when it comes to them saying that you're predictable. That's another part of communication. Because I would want to know, well, what makes me so predictable? And then it might be the lack of communication between the two of you. If somebody finds you predictable, then it's likely some type of communication issue. But again, that is just my take on things. Again, I am not a licensed therapist, counselor, or any of those things. Just as a disclaimer, I am clearly going off of my own thoughts when it comes to relationships, communicating in relationships, and compromising in relationships. We're going to wrap this episode up, y'all. It's so many things that we can say about relationships, and I actually love talking about relationships, and I do plan on having a few people that I know that will bring great value to Time with T podcast. It's always good to kind of have episodes where it's just not me speaking, it's me and someone else, because I love feedback. I love hearing other people's perspectives on different topics, and man, I just love building and, you know what I'm saying, getting deep sometimes with these conversations. And a lot of conversations need to be had, but sometimes people, we just don't want to talk about the shit. Like, we have to start talking about things. Like, we have to start getting these things out there, because I really believe that, and I'm kind of going off subject, but I really believe that because we're not talking and we're always on mute and we always in our head about how we're feeling, that's causing a lot of mental health issues. We need to start speaking on how we're feeling. Again, communicating. Let it out. It's okay. It's okay. It's either the person going to be there for you and they're going to listen to you. They're going to rock with you. They're going to try to understand you. Even if they don't understand, that's like the most powerful thing for a person to say. I don't understand you, but I'm going to try to understand you. And I'm going to need you to help me to understand you. To hear those words, man, it is so powerful. I would take that over somebody speaking over me or making me feel invalid any day. So let's go ahead and work on our communication, work on compromising, loving the person that you're with. If you really love that person that you're with, you know you got to go the extra mile. You know you got to take extra steps, and it's okay to let yourself go. You're not taking away from who you are. You're not changing for someone else. Change for you. Because once you communicate more effectively in one relationship, then it should follow suit with all of the other relationships that you have with people. So, again, we're going to wrap this episode up, y'all. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. You people, oh my God, y'all are my people. And I just love the love that I've been receiving and the motivation and the feedback. I love y'all. So this is, again, episode 3. If you haven't listened to episode 1 and 2, you might want to do that. Time with T podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, and also YouTube. Again, my email address is timewitht@gmail.com. If you want to send any feedback, if there's a topic that you're interested in and you want to suggest that topic, if you having relationship problems or anything and you really feel like you don't have anybody to talk to about these things, but you want to kind of get it out there and you want to hear other people's perspective, you can definitely send me that info. I will always keep your name anonymous on Time with T podcast because we don't play them games. That's real ghetto. Yeah, and I don't do that. So just definitely connect with me. Again, also on Instagram, Time with T podcast. And you can connect me with any of those ways. I appreciate the love. Peace, family.